Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host, as always. Joining me tonight, as always, is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing very well. I feel the excitement for this game, and the barometer for that is really just how much are my kids talking about this game, and how much are they
Yeah,
bugging me about this matchup. And by kids, I mean my students, not my actual kids. But they're asking, are you going to be at the game? I'm going to be at that game. There's so much buzz around this game. My parents are texting me about the game. I feel it. And then before we get into anything else, I just saw your direct message, Sean. You know who you are on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. It's not Blue Sky, not yet, but you are. I appreciate the message. I truly do. There's been some toxicity on social media last couple of weeks for a variety of reasons. I appreciate you showing the positive side and hope that we can make your drive today or tomorrow, whatever, about a little bit better.
yeah. Social media has been kind of crazy the last few weeks. I don't want to get into a ton of specifics, but I am on Blue Sky. Tyler is on Blue Sky. If you are into that, we definitely, would love it if you follow us on that side of things. There's been 1 million people signing up to join Blue Sky over the last 24 hours. So there's kind of a movement going on over at Blue Sky, and we'll be partaking over there. We are definitely not deleting our Twitter accounts. We've each spent way too much time building those up and have relationships through the online world, and Twitter for the most part has been pretty kind to us, but there's certain changes from a functionality standpoint that I can't really get behind anymore. There are people online who decide to harass individuals who they disagree with, and will even send letters to their places of work and hurl insults at every which way they possibly can. And now I cannot block those people. They are still able to see my posts because certain individual who runs the app is a little sensitive and wants to be able to see everything that gets posted. Twitter used to be a safe haven for me. I used to love it, and now it's becoming a rather toxic place. So join us on Blue Sky. It's great. Nobody really is toxic over there. There's no bots. There's no spam. There's anything like that. And it's been a fun time so far.
Not a sponsor, by the way, but if you guys, Blue Sky, whatever you're up to, if you want to sponsor, go for it. I am an unfortunate, degenerate, sicko, whatever, and I will be circling the Twitter X trains for as long as I can, because it's kind of a sunk cost thing when you're nearing those 20,000 followers and you're monetized and stuff like that. And
Yes.
it's kind of fun. So, as both of us not have a child present, we are moving towards that as a 30 and almost 30-year-old. So yeah, we're the social media thing. But anyway, we can talk about this game now.
Yeah, we were reminiscing about our top posts on X, and that will keep us around for a little bit because, like you mentioned, we are able to make money off of it. So not going to go away completely, but definitely phasing away. Mm-hmm. All right. Today is Thursday, so we are doing our Chargers game preview. This is a massive, massive game. You mentioned, your students are talking about it. My coworkers are talking to me about it. My friends, my family, people messaging me for tickets, etc. I'm like, I don't have tickets for you, but like, I'm happy to facilitate. So it's a huge game. Obviously, Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow. It's the headliner, but also from a playoff perspective. If the Chargers manage to win this game, their playoff chances move up above 85% on the Athletics playoff model. So this is a significant matchup for the Chargers, ability to clinch a playoff spot down the future. Their people are starting to figure out like seeding possibilities. And well, if they beat the Bengals, there's a pretty good chance that the Chargers could move up to the 5 seed. And obviously beating the Ravens next week would continue that. So the playoff leverage is huge. This is a massive opportunity for the Chargers to get into a primetime game and show the world what they are building and show the world that they are a legit playoff contender. There's a lot of talk online from the media analysts around the world that the Chargers haven't beat anybody good, yada, yada, yada. Well, this is your real first opportunity to show that you are a legit team. So super excited to dive into the specifics of this matchup. Like I mentioned, just the quarterbacks alone make it worthwhile. Should be a lot of fun. As always, our show is presented by our friends over at Prize Picks. This is the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports, whatever kind of daily fantasy sport floats your boat, whether that is the NBA or the NFL, college football, etc. Prize Picks is a wonderful app. Not just saying that because we are sponsored by Prize Picks. It's been a ton of fun to use the cross specials. There was a recent one about LeBron as he went for his third straight triple double last night. He did get it, and so if you were able to participate in that triple double special, it was a nice little payout. So we'll do our Chargers specific Prize Picks selections of the week on Saturday as we get more of them up, but it's been a great app. We strongly encourage you guys to go out and check it out. It is prizepicks.com/guilty if you want to use the link or use the code guilty at checkout. If you're doing it from the computer, I've been told that the link is the better way to do that. Again, that is prizepicks.com/guilty or code guilty at checkout for a deposit match on your first deposit. Should be a ton of fun. All right, we're not going to do a ton of injury stuff. The Chargers are not super injured right now, although Khalil Mack is attempting to play through a double groin injury. I didn't even know that was possible, but really just puts into perspective how tough that guy is. We'll see officially once things kind of come out. He said that he is not going to miss this game, though. So if he does miss the game, we'll talk about it. But he's playing through 2 groin injuries, which is crazy. So let's dive right into the coaches' corner. Tyler, what are you most looking forward to watching these Chargers coaches matching up with the Bengals coaches this week?
Well, there's definitely one thing that I think we're all waiting to see, but I would like to stick to the Chargers offense in this case because I like when things carry over from the previous week, and I don't want the narrative from the previous week to be forgotten as we head into this one. And to me, especially given how poor the Bengals run defense is, how do Greg Roman continue this momentum from last week of staying on script and even just identifying the most dangerous player and running away from that player or getting away from that player or building some easy outs for Herbert in the game to avoid said player? I think they did a very, very good job, execution-wise for sure, but game plan-wise to avoid Simmons as much as possible, who did not have the explosion game that I think we all thought he was going to have based on the way the interior was playing. But they played so well in sync. They ran the ball well. They moved away from him. They had screens. They had reverses, whatever. They tried playing it to get away from him. It worked. This week, it's an edge rusher. The Bengals defense has talent, but it's not coming together right now. So how do they stay positive? How do they keep the run game going? The Bengals are by far worse against the run than the pass. So even though it is, Herbert and Joe Burrow, run game, how do you lean into that on primetime?
Yeah, just from a statistical standpoint, the Bengals they're 17th in rushing yards allowed. I think a lot of that has been kind of like the game scripts that the Bengals are forcing teams into, where you're playing potential shootouts. Like, there was a very significant couple of rushes from Derrick Henry in both games, but for the most part, the Bengals are lighting up the scoreboard. You kind of have to keep pace. And so the total yardage number is not that crazy, but in terms of EPA per rush allowed, the Bengals are 29th. And in terms of success rate, they are 31st. So when teams are running the football, they're running the football very, very well. And some of that is, due to explosive rushes. Some of that is due to, staying on schedule. And like we mentioned on Tuesday, this is a great opportunity for the Chargers just to continue some momentum. And Greg Roman spoke today at his press conference that Gus is as healthy as he's seen in quite some time. He's ready to be back on the bus, he said. So Gus Edwards getting healthy at the right time is perfect for this Chargers team. It's perfect for this individual matchup. And we've seen J.K. Dobbins break off, 2 or 3 explosive rushes, it feels like, in several key moments of games. And I'm sure the Chargers are going to want to pound the rock and keep Joe Burrow off the field. So the run game and how they set things up, how they take advantage of this matchup, I think is a crucial aspect. It's a crucial aspect for them every week. Sure. But this specific week, when they have a matchup advantage and then on the other sideline, a quarterback you want to keep off the field, Greg Roman getting the run game to stay on schedule is super important.
Yeah, people are, after a few weeks of what the heck is up with Gus Edwards, we're all, I think, all on the same page. Like, more Gus Edwards, please, and him being healthier is fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. And we also talked about, Justin Herbert running more. You will see what that kind of looks like as well. Okay, so I think the run game is part of this, but also for me, I am so curious how Jesse Minter keeps Joe Burrow off schedule, because Joe Burrow, when he gets into a rhythm, is one of the most lethal passers in the league. And even when he's not in rhythm, like we've seen, time and time again, that he can just kind of pull a drive out of nowhere and kind of break your hearts. He has that little bit of, Mahomes type behavior in that regard. On this season, he is third in the league in EPA per play, combined with completion percentage over expectation. He leads the league in touchdowns, and he's tied for third lowest in the league in turnover worthy play percentage. So he's playing at a really, really efficient clip. The Bengals have not turned that into many wins, as we just mentioned, the run defense. But Joe Burrow has been basically on schedule this entire season. Teams have not been able to do a good enough job of taking that away from him. And I mentioned this on X, right? Like, a lot of they haven't been tested stuff is being thrown around for the Chargers defense, but you could also make the same argument for the Bengals offense, where they've only played one top 10 defense, which is the Eagles. And that was the worst game of Joe Burrow's season. He was sacked 5 times in that matchup. He had the 1 interception in that matchup. The Eagles were able to do a great job of flustering him, both from a pass rush perspective and a coverage perspective. So how does Jesse Minter kind of combine what the Eagles did and what they saw on tape from the Eagles, as well as their own experience of playing the Bengals type offense last week against the Titans with Brian Callahan? How does he combine all of that and get Joe Burrow off the schedule? And the extra layer here is that Khalil Mack injury. If Khalil is not able to play, that can really drastically alter the kind of game plan you're able to put together, because he's your best pass rusher. So how does Jesse kind of put everything together? Who are the key pieces here? Who's able to step up and rise to the occasion up front? Is this a big Elijah Molden game, etc.? I think there's just a lot of curiosity for me to see what kind of things schematically Jesse Minter is able to throw at Joe Burrow to try and mess with his rhythm and keep him off schedule.
Yeah, he's unfortunately, we just saw him play outstanding football against the Ravens, and they've got plenty of time to now watch what the Chargers have been doing. So how they do it will be interesting. I loved what the Chargers were able to do last week, but I don't know. Like, right now, that is the outlier. What they did as a pass rush is currently an outlier. Khalil Mack having a great day is not an outlier, but the entire defense having as many sacks and pressures as it did has not been the norm this season. So yeah, how Jesse Minter moves him off, or how the secondary works to move him off rhythm would be great. The interior for the Bengals is not great. The Bengals have basically not had a good line since Burrow's been their quarterback. They tried to tape some pieces together. They've invested, like they just drafted Amarius Mims, but it hasn't really paid off and to be a great offensive line. So it's a juicy matchup for the pass rush, but the quarterback himself is playing awesome. And then you have Ja'Marr Chase.
Yes, we'll get into Ja'Marr Chase here in a second. So, Jesse Minter has risen to the occasion and then some this season. I look at what he was able to do to confuse Jameis Winston and what he was able to do to confuse Patrick Mahomes at time. He's going to have some answers, but at the same time, they have not played a quarterback receiver combination that they are going to play on Sunday. So, what does this look like? I think there's going to be obviously the staples. They play a lot of cover 2, they play a lot of cover 6, but they've started throwing some Tampa 2 looks. They've started to play Derwin James in the slot some more. All of these are ways to kind of mess with the quarterback, and I just can't wait to see what it is. And then Jay brings this up too. Christian Fulton seems like he's fully healthy. He says he's 100%. He was teammates with Ja'Marr Chase in high school and college. So that's pretty exciting as well. And it definitely helps Jesse be able to put together a adequate game plan for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, Fulton saying, yep, I am 100% playing this game. Khalil Mack with his injury saying, I'm going to be out there. You can feel these guys really like this is a big game, especially for everyone, yes, but for the defense. They know that everyone's waiting to see if they can do this.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of what we are most excited to watch on the field, I think it's very difficult to have that conversation without talking about Justin Herbert and what he's been able to do in primetime games. He's averaging essentially like 285 yards per game and 3 touchdowns in primetime situations. The win-loss record hasn't been great because some of those primetime games include like the Week 18 against the Raiders, etc. But Justin Herbert has obviously taken a liking to the primetime moments. We've seen him, against the Dolphins a couple of years ago. He had the stand-up and point, right? That was a huge moment. The Steelers game, when he was able to have that game-winning touchdown to Mike Williams. Justin Herbert loves playing in primetime, and Joe Burrow also loves playing in primetime. So this is a truly like heavyweight quarterback matchup. Whatever kind of statistic you are looking at, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow are right there neck and neck. And if these two teams were, more in line for like the 1 seed kind of teams, then this would be, framed as like this is an MVP matchup. Like this is the quarterback battle of the week, and it still is that. I don't think either of these guys really have a chance to win the actual MVP, but they're both playing at that kind of level. I mentioned the EPA per play and completion percentage above expectation for Joe Burrow. They're both neck and neck in big time throw percentage. Justin Herbert is first, Joe Burrow is second. Passing grade, Herbert is second, Joe Burrow is third. These guys are playing the position as well as anybody else in the league. And like I mentioned, if Lamar Jackson weren't a thing right now, and if the teams were better, these guys would be in the MVP conversation because they are just playing at that kind of level. Again, I do think the Chargers have a significant defensive matchup advantage in this one. The Bengals defense is not that good. So Justin Herbert is going to have to play his A game because we talked about this on Tuesday. The Bengals are playing for their playoff lives. If they lose, they're essentially out. I expect Joe Burrow to come, and have just haymaker answers for the Chargers defense. I expect him to play a very, very good game, or at least attempt to, obviously. And so Justin Herbert is going to have to answer that. And we're learning more about him. We learned about football Justin today, courtesy of Eric Smith, which was a fantastic article. I think Justin Herbert is going to be extremely fired up for this matchup. He loves playing in primetime football. He's obviously beaten Joe Burrow head-to-head previously. I think this has the makings for a real treat from a quarterback perspective.
Yeah, this will be like the battle for MVP that no one will win MVP. But you'll look at the end of the season. I think you'll look back and go, these are 2 of maybe the 4 best quarterbacks this season, based on the way they're probably going to finish the season. And I think Herbert he's always had something to him that maybe people underestimate. I think that's been the case since he was drafted. It was about him being too quiet or reserved or couldn't lead. But, then you see the mic'd up this past weekend. They need a 4th down. They need to go get it. And Herbert walks up to Harbaugh and goes, I'll fucking go get it. I'll go get the touchdown. And of course, then he does, because that's Justin Herbert. Like there's just a way he's carrying himself right now, even just with the lock post-game speech stuff, where he's talking about, look, it's not really my thing. Has not generally been my thing to be that guy. But Jim Harbaugh believes in me, and there's a reason he's asking me to do this. You just got to go with it and trust him. And you can just see both of them just finding themselves in each other, with each other, being exactly like each other. It's impressive to watch what Herbert is doing. But Burrow, since college, especially at least the last year at LSU, he's that guy. He's the guy who will rise to the occasion. He, like you said, will throw haymakers. It's going to be a fantastic matchup. The difference is one guy's playing the number 1 defense in the league. The other guy's playing the 28th defense in the league. But one guy does have Jamar Chase.
Yes, that's obviously a big matchup as well, which we'll get to. But I just think, I don't know if the Chargers defense is going to be able to force some mistakes out of Joe Burrow. I think they'll be able to contain certain aspects of the Bengals offense. I'm definitely not expecting this to be like a 40 to 42 kind of game. Like the Chargers ball control offense is going to limit possessions, and that's just kind of how they've played football this year. But when Joe Burrow has the ball, I expect them to be able to move the football much better against the Chargers than any team the Chargers have played so far this season. And just because Joe Burrow is playing that high level, Jamar Chase is playing at that high level. So this has the makings of a true, like, heavyweight matchup, back in the old days of boxing and things like that. And that's why I think people should also not freak out too much about the defense. Like I think the defense will have some moments. I think the defense will play well, and I think they'll certainly contain them more than like the Ravens defense was able to do. I mean, the Ravens defense, it's not very good. They're like 27th in the league in EPA per play right now. So the Chargers are a significantly better coached defense right now. But they certainly have their work cut out for them against Joe Burrow.
Yeah, should be fun.
All right, Tyler, what are you most excited to watch?
I would love to see if this pass rush can repeat what it did against the Titans, which surprised me. You tell me Bosa and Mac play, 16 pass rush snaps together? I would have said, okay, how many pressures did they have? Like, was it even double digits? And they got themselves 18 with 7 sacks in that game. Thule's, I think, even though we've believed in the resurgence for Thule, I think 3 games in a row really points to a true positive trend with him. But it was Dupree, it was Fox, it was everyone getting in on the action. I mean, we saw Dan Henley hurdle a guy and get a sack from 53 yards the other direction.
Yeah.
So, but is it for real? Where is it in the chat? Somebody asked, is ET44A, is our pressure rate a concern? We're bottom 3 in the league. I don't know where they currently stand. I can't imagine it's a ton higher, but for the most part, through most of the season, we've talked about, hey, the Chargers actually don't pressure the quarterback at a high rate. It was one of the bottom 5 in the league, but they just have great coverage, and that works, and that translates maybe into a hit or a mistake or whatever. So can they do it again? We've already talked about the line, getting Joe Burrow off his spot, Burrow versus this defense. Can this pass rush do it again? I'm excited to see if this team can actually do it, especially without Khalil Mack in this game. Because if they show that they can do this again and really rush the passer on top of what they're doing in the run game and the offense, like that is a defense that can close out a game in the postseason. It's always been good this year, but we've been hoping for more of a closeout game, a consistent rush. Didn't really get that. If they can do it in this game, I'm really starting to believe.
Yeah. So pressure percentage is kind of interpreted differently across different sites. Pro Football Reference has them actually as the second worst pressure percentage in the league. There's like 5 teams kind of hovering around the 17% mark, and that's where they have the Chargers is at 17.1%. They are much better on NFL Pro. So NFL Pro has them kind of as a middle of the pack pressure percentage. I think they're closer towards like 22%. So it's kind of open for interpretation. But what matters, I think, the most is that the Chargers are, make sure I get this right, they have the 5th most sacks in the league with 31. So it feels like they're more kind of a middle of the pack pass rush overall. It doesn't feel like they are a bottom 2 pass rush. Like they're below the Atlanta Falcons on pressure percentage on Pro Football Reference. That doesn't match up with what we're seeing. Like the Atlanta Falcons just like do not have any real kind of pass rush presence outside of Grady Jarrett. So it does feel more of like a middle of the pack pass rush group, especially when Khalil Mack is kind of humming. And we'll see. We have yet to see Joey Bosa be fully healthy, obviously, this season at some point. That's hopefully going to happen. He still is a limited participant in practice lately. And you mentioned the snaps. I think combined, the two of them only played 23 or 24 snaps. So we saw Caleb Murphy a lot more than I think I was certainly expecting. Thule and Bud played a ton of snaps. So we'll see what the health of those 2 players allows them to get through. But if Khalil can at least be out there for like 20 snaps and Joey can be out there for 20 snaps, I'm not expecting this Bengals offensive line to be like lights out. I mean, Orlando Brown has been pretty, banged up, and he's probably their best offensive lineman, which is not great. So I think if those 2 guys can give you 20 to 25 snaps, then I feel a lot better about it. But if Khalil can't play, I'm a little nervous about the pass rush getting home with Joe Burrow, who has, I think, the 8th fastest time to throw right now.
Yeah, no, it should be an exciting one. I don't know. We'll see. If Puna Ford wants to do more of what he did on Sunday and just look like a bona fide like Aaron Donald out there on that sack, hey, I'm all for it.
Yes, Puna Ford like twice a game just like makes me like sit up out of my chair when I'm watching film. I'm like, okay, like this guy, like just the flexibility for a guy his size is crazy to me. Where are you at with the Thule resurgence specifically? Do you think this is kind of just a factor of, you know, he is playing fewer special team snaps, which we did ask for. What do you kind of attribute this to? Because like it looks better on tape than it did earlier in the season. It's not just like I'm curious to get your take there of what exactly you think this can be attributed to, because he's second in the league in pressures over the last 3 weeks and has the most sacks over the last 3 weeks. Like pressure win rate is like doubled. So very interesting.
Yeah, he does not play like the greatest offensive lines, but he didn't to start the season either. It's not like he started the season. I mean, the Panthers were the second game. You know, it's not like it was a great group to begin with. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like Thule's a guy who needs the snaps and to just be allowed to be the full-time guy. And I don't know. It's almost like a back against the wall guy, especially with, you know, Khalil being hurt. I don't know, because we saw him do this last year. So not like this is like a new thing for us. We saw him do this for like a really significant 8 to 9 game stretch last year. I don't know if it's a change in emphasis where the defense has always been, in terms of the front, like it's more of a run stopping front and then pass rush second. I don't know if the emphasis has changed for him, but it's like, and this is, I'm just making this up, but it's like he looked at the 4 missed tackles against the Cardinals and said, fuck that. And then just the next 3 games, he just tore it up. Because like, and he strikes me as a guy, as we mentioned in the offseason, he's like, I don't know what to do. I went to the gym. I tried to go on vacation. I hated it. I went back to the gym because this is all he knows. And it just almost feels like that particular game was like, oh God, that was awful. I'm never watching that again. And for the last 3 games, he's been amazing.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. It does, you know, he had a rough game and against the Cardinals, and it seems like he took it personally. So whatever has clicked, this has been by far his 3 most productive games as a pass rusher. You know, he had a 9 pressure game against the Minnesota Vikings last season. He had 8 pressures against the New York Jets. So we've seen Thule be able to have these kind of games, but to string together 3 in a row was not something we really saw last year. Like he had the 9 against Minnesota, and then the next week he had 1, and he had the 8 against the Jets, and the next week he had 2. So it was, you know, he was doing rookie things, but the ceiling was just like tremendous to watch. And now we've seen it result in 14 pressures and 6 sacks over the last 3 weeks. So Thule, I think, is playing fantastic. We just keep on saying this, like, I can't wait for this pass rush group to get healthy, man. Like it's just, you know, Joey's finally coming back, and now Khalil's dealing with 2 groin injuries. Like it's just so unfortunate that we have yet to see this edge rusher group get healthy. But Thule is playing lights out football right now, and I do kind of expect that to continue. It does kind of seem like he's finding the right recipe to success. Like he is, you know, the speed to power is working. You know, he's able to kind of do a push and pull. He's able to do a speed, you know, kind of a dip around the corner. He's starting to get some more tools in his bag, and I think it's really showing up in a positive way as well.
Yeah, been a ton of fun to watch.
Okay, on the opposite side, I think we've hinted at this a few times. What are they going to do against Jamar Chase, man? I think that's number one of what is keeping us up at night about this matchup.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're the receiver that has 150 more receiving yards than wide receiver 2, and the wide receiver 2 and 3 and 4 are pretty good, you're doing something right. It's Jamar Chase's stat lines are interesting because he'll have, you know, fine games, 62 yards, 35 yards. Oh, here's 118, 85 yards. Oh, 193. And then just like 5 games of like 50 to 75, about 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't anticipate the Chargers to hold him to 25 yards. I don't think this is a case where they shut out Jamar Chase entirely unless he gets injured on the first play of the game. Otherwise, he's going to do some damage. How they decide to allocate their resources to him, I'm very curious. I don't know how successful it's been. I love the 3 safeties being out there together, 332 and 22 being out there. I just think that's a beautiful way to either mix up the coverage, do something different, or just prevent anybody from doing something to destroy the entire defensive scheme. So, yeah, this is the matchup. This is the matchup because this is the best receiver they'll face all season. He's the best receiver in the league right now. Yeah. And even though we said, Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. at the time were the best combo they've seen all year, and that's still true, this is a whole different thing because the guy that can go for almost 300 yards in regulation is coming to town.
Yeah, and T. Higgins returning factors in here as well. He did not play last week, and so it felt like every target went to Jamar Chase last week against the Ravens, which obviously resulted in him having almost 300 yards receiving, which is crazy to me. So the player that Chase has become is so interesting to me. Like, we watched him at college, and he did have a propensity to get yards after the catch, but what he did most was get vertical and dunk on you, right? That was like the thing for Jamar Chase, and that's what he's been able to do in the NFL. It's how he started his career. But this year, he actually has his lowest average depth of target of his career so far this year. So they're getting him the football with more opportunities to create yards after catch than previously they had ever done. So it's kind of an interesting arc where he's like a vertical go ball guy, and now he's kind of like a slant, dig, crossers, all this stuff. So it's a very different kind of receiver than I think people are going to be expecting to see.
Yeah.
So it's about kind of muddying the passing lanes for Joe Burrow and then making sure you have bodies around Jamar Chase. Like, if you watch the way that the Ravens defended him, they did a lot more one-on-one matchups, I think, than anybody should. And that's how they were able to, create that many yards after the catch and give him that many opportunities to create explosive plays. He has more 40-yard receptions than 11 NFL teams do. So he's creating like huge chunk gains at an insanely high rate. He's averaging essentially 1 per game right now, which is kind of like prime Tyreek Hill stuff. And again, it's just kind of crazy that this is a guy who's been previously like a vertical goal ball guy. So, it's a great time to get Christian Fulton back. But I think the main way that you are going to prevent Jamar Chase from having this kind of avalanche game where he just beats you by himself is you got to have multiple bodies around him at several times. You got to disrupt his route tree, get physical with him as much as you can, which kind of sounds counterintuitive because he is a physical presence, but you just got to get him off your spot, and you have to create advantages from a numbers perspective. Otherwise, he's just going to find angles and get past you and create multiple explosives.
Yeah, I hate it but every time I turn on the TV, it feels like here's Jamar Chase on a check down for 70 yards. What the hell? And like, Jamar Chase is not as fast as a Jalen Waddle, or Tyreek Hill or whatever. And he wasn't even doing that in college as much. It's wild to see him, whether it's smarts, natural feel. He's a freak, obviously. Like, Jamar Chase is a freak, but that was like never what I expected as much as just the winning vertical. And he can do that too.
Yeah.
But he's on pace. Like, last year and the year before, the leaders in total yak for receivers was, I think, like 632 and 677. I think it was Amon-Ra St. Brown last year. I think Jefferson the previous year. He's on pace for almost 800 yards.
That's crazy.
Like, he has over 450 yak yards right now. Like, McConkey leads the Chargers with 492 yards, and Chase himself has 458 just after the catch.
Yeah.
The fact that he's going to go, 170 to 150, 120 more yards after the catch than the leaders last couple of years is insane. What he's doing is insane. And I think the Chargers can do it, but I've had some concerns with the tackling in the secondary. It hasn't been bad, but I don't think like Jamar Chase is the game you want to mess up.
Yeah, there's been some moments where the Chargers have left some meat on the bone in terms of tackling. So It's definitely something where you got to be concerned about. I am very curious about the way that Derwin James is going to be used in this matchup. So if you look at the amount of Bengals slot snaps, Jamar Chase gets a decent amount of slot snaps. It's basically like 15 a game if you average it out. Is that an opportunity where they think, let's let Derwin be a little bit physical with Jamar Chase, make sure he has help over the top? Is that something they consider? Because I mean, different regimes, right? But Brandon Staley did do that against CeeDee Lamb because CeeDee Lamb was going in the slot quite often. Is that a way you can kind of create some just muddiness for Jamar Chase, is use Derwin a bit more on the line of scrimmage? Is that Tarheeb still, now that Christian Fulton is back? Is it Jasir Taylor? Is it Elijah Molden? Whatever the case is, like, I think you got to do as much as you can to disrupt him. You have to treat him like Justin Jefferson at this point, Devontae Adams. Like, you got to do everything possible to throw at him, because the last thing that any of us want to see is a 230-yard game, 3-touchdown game. Because I think if that happens, the Bengals are probably winning.
Yeah.
I don't think the Chargers offense can keep up with that kind of performance. So they got to keep Jamar Chase under wraps as much as they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the other thing we do have to point out, we have to mention Trey Hendrickson as well. It's a very similar kind of conversation in terms of the statistics, because he is leading the league in total pressures. He is leading the league in total sacks. He has 11 sacks. Tyler, how many total sacks do you think the Bengals have, unless you looked already previously?
Well, I did look it up, and
Okay.
to put it into some sort of terms that we all understand, it's basically like if Prime, Khalil, or Joey were playing with like 3 Chris Rumps. What I'm trying to say is they don't have many. You may share the number.
Yeah, so the Bengals have 17 total sacks, and Trey Hendrickson has 11 of them by himself. So he's accounting for like 65, 75%, whatever that math is, of the team's individual sack total. So he is the only guy on defense that you really have to concern yourself with. But he's a big time presence. And Justin Herbert was talking about the confidence that they have in Rashawn Slater this week. And Rashawn is still doing the thing where he will tell them to stop chipping because he just wants to do it by himself. Like, he's that kind of guy. I hyped him up quite a bit against Myles Garrett, and that did not go super well. But I still think Rashawn is that guy. Rashawn is extremely capable of having a true shutdown performance against a guy like Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson and Myles Garrett share some stylistic characteristics. They both want to power rush you. Obviously, Khalil Mack is that kind of guy. So Rashawn is not, unfamiliar with this kind of rusher, but Trey Hendrickson is extremely good as well. He deserves a lot of the Chargers' attention. When he does go to the right side, I do expect him to get chipped and doubled with Joe Alt. He does move around a little bit more than Myles Garrett does. He moves to the right side about 10, 15 snaps a game. But for the most part, it will be a lot of Hendrickson and Rashawn Slater on Sunday night.
Okay, so I was trying to do my best to get to 2021 to see how it went. I don't know off the top of my head if Hendrickson played. So Slater allowed 3 pressures, 1 sack that game. Couldn't tell you what it was or what happened, but that's just that. Hendrickson himself had 5 pressures and 1 sack. So I had a pretty decent day. That might have been against the not Rashawn Slater player, whoever that was. But yeah, his numbers are outstanding, and especially in a year where Aiden Hutchinson goes down, whose win rate of like 38% is just insane. I don't even know how that's physically possible to win almost a 40% clip. But, I'm sure the Lions are thanking the Jaguars for making that mistake. But his numbers, especially compared, like his numbers are great compared to the NFL as is, but compared to the rest of his team, he's got 52 pressures. The next guy has 17. And it's an interior defensive lineman, BJ Hill, who's good. But your running mates, it is kind of wild to look through this group too. Like, whatever the Bengals are doing in terms of drafting, I think everyone would agree like it should be a better front. And yet Murphy, Osai, McKinley Jackson, but Chris Jenkins, Sheldon Rankins, Lawrence Guy, Cedric Johnson, a lot of guys on here that we recognize and know, and certainly are no scrubs. And it's basically Hendrickson being an all-pro kind of player and everyone else averaging 1.5 pressures per game. So, yeah, like you said, he is – I don't even think there's like an Arden Key on this group. Whereas last week you had to worry about Arden Key, even though you had Simmons or even T'Vondre Sweat. This group, not that they're bad, but they're just so far away from what Hendrickson is doing.
Yeah, you look at his game log is kind of crazy. There's a couple duds in here, weirdly against like the Commanders and the Panthers, but 6 pressures, 2, 1, 7, 4, 9, 9, 6. Like he's getting 5, 6, 7 pressures very consistently at a high rate. So again, I think the Chargers, their plan will be pretty clear. Rashawn is going to be left on an island because he is that guy. When he switches sides, they're going to chip and double team. And I'm just, it's going to be an exciting matchup to see how Rashawn kind of handles this. Hopefully a much better performance against Trey Hendrickson than he had against Myles Garrett, who is kind of in this same kind of realm as well.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Let's get to our X factors and we'll do our game picks. We talked a lot about Jamar Chase, and rightfully so. T. Higgins looks like he is going to be playing in this matchup as well. So if the Chargers, like, ideal scenario happens, I don't think you can ever really like shut Jamar Chase down, but if they're able to give enough attention to cause Joe Burrow to not throw to Jamar Chase enough, the ball's got to go somewhere else, and it's probably going to go to T. Higgins. So I do expect a lot of Cam Hart on T. Higgins. That just stylistically makes a lot of sense from a matchup standpoint. T. Higgins is 6'5". Cam Hart is their tallest corner at 6'3". We've seen Cam Hart have some physical moments from a press coverage standpoint, from a tackling standpoint. I feel like this is a big Cam Hart, kind of announce your arrival to the country. In a Sunday Night Football matchup, we know watching him that he's played really well. The people who like are really studying the Chargers defense, they've all kind of shouted out Cam Hart. But if you ask like a casual NFL fan, like they're not going to know who Cam Hart is. Like this is not a very well-known player. He wasn't like a star college prospect. He's not been like a star NFL corner. He was a 5th round draft pick. So if you're a draft nerd, if you're a film nerd, you know who Cam Hart is. Otherwise, you probably don't know who this guy is. So this has a chance to be one of two scenarios where Cam Hart announces his arrival in a very positive way. T. Higgins is a great player, man. He's a wide receiver 1 on probably 25 NFL teams. So it has a chance to be a bad Cam Hart moment also, as much as we like the player. It's a huge X factor because if it's the former, then the Chargers are probably going to be in a really good spot on defense. If it's the latter, they're not going to be in a good spot on defense. If it's kind of in the middle, then I think the Chargers can be okay. But we have loved what we've seen from Cam Hart. I think he will have some moments against T. Higgins. I think it'll be kind of an up and down game just because T is that kind of player. But if Cam can get them an interception, if they can get him, a couple pass breakups, it's a huge swing for the Chargers defense to have a good Cam Hart game.
Yeah, I've been, especially the first 3 games where it was Sutton, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Olave, who played, not like it was specifically him the whole game, but that's a heck of a 1-2-3 to have to face. I was pleasantly surprised with how he did. But this is, even if it's Chase, if it's Higgins, whatever, it's a whole different ball game. And Hart being the X factor is also just because I don't like, okay, Fulton comes back. How much is he back? Is he playing the entire game? He wants to be out there, obviously. I don't know for sure. He hasn't played. Now he's playing. He'll be running around quite a bit. Does he make it the whole game? Okay, Cam Hart's out there. Tarheeb still's been playing well. How much is Tarheeb still going to play? Do you rotate at all? Do you leave Cam Hart out there? If Cam Hart, I forget what the 49ers corner's name is, but they gave him almost like $100 million over a couple of years.
Lenore,
yeah. If Cam Hart can go out there and perform to any level that slows Jamar Chase to, or T. Higgins for that matter, to a very respectable, solid game, the surplus value that they'll get out of what Cam Hart can do playing games like that versus paying a corner $20 million. I'm excited to see what Cam Hart does. On the other side, for me, it's not the other side, but actually just right next to him is the slot because of the way I think the outside will mostly be taken care of. But Jamar Chase, as you mentioned earlier, plays like a third of his snaps in the slot. So he's going to be there quite a bit. Of course, they got to move plenty of guys around, but they play quite a bit in the slot, or Jamar Chase does, that is. And so watching last week, the only real critical issues that maybe weren't necessarily a single player issue, but both of the Ridley touchdowns came against Still and against Taylor. Mm-hmm. So in particular, can they avoid leaving those guys in those one-on-one spots? It was I felt like kind of like a coverage breakdown for the Chargers against Ridley. I didn't feel like that was Tarheeb Still. No, Jaw Taylor on the first one. Yeah. It wasn't a Jaw Taylor lost the rep necessarily. Just felt like they kind of misread it and gave it up. So when in those moments, can they hold him?
Yeah, that's totally fair. Good question from Sean, kind of relating to this. Which Rook CB is getting benched for Fulton's return? Jesse Minter did say today they feel like they have 4 starting corners. So I think Jasir Taylor, Tarheeb Still will both play in the slot. I think they'll rotate every now and then on the outside. Obviously, if Christian Fulton is fully healthy, I think he's going to be 100% of the snaps. But he says he is. We don't know that for sure. So I think for me, the best combination of Chargers corners is Fulton and Hart on the outside and Tarheeb in the slot. I think that gives them the most amount of physicality and playmaking ability and ball production that they could have in a combination. I think Jasir Taylor has been mostly very solid in coverage this year, but he hasn't really given them a ton of ball production and a ton of run production either. And that's where Tarheeb Still can kind of have an edge over him, and Tarheeb has had a sack and a couple of pressures as well. So to me, that's their best trio, but I think all 4 will play. It just kind of is how the Chargers are running things right now, and all 4 of them have played, well in their roles and deserve to play. So I think Cam Hart and Fulton are your 2 clear outside guys. Tarheeb can move around, and then Derwin will play some in the slot. So this is a very flexible Chargers secondary that is kind of coming together right now, and Jesse Minter's obviously doing a great job of putting those guys in positions to succeed. But I think Hart will play more than Tarheeb will.
Yeah, I agree there. I liked, if nothing else, if we were wrong about everything else about Tarheeb Still, watching him in film, but I did like his physicality quite a bit. And I think if you have a Jamar Chase in the slot or a Higgins or whatever, I think having that physicality will definitely help.
Yeah, related, Gustavo asking about Asante Samuel Jr. Jim Harbaugh is not giving any information, so everything is still very much up in the air regarding Asante Samuel Jr.'s return. I still expect, if he does come back, I don't think he has a starting role. I don't believe that Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still have done. I think they have done enough, I should say, to maintain their starting roles that they have positioned themselves with. So we'll see what happens from a health perspective when he comes back. I think he's a backup, and we'll see if he's able to carve out a role on special teams. ESPN has him as the 14th best free agent in 2025. So there's that.
Ahead of Khalil Mack, no less. I don't know where I would have put Asante Samuel Jr. on a list, but it respectfully would not have been ahead of Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
Unless both of his groins fall off.
Yes. Yeah. I cannot imagine playing football on 2
strained. Can I imagine taking a dump with 2 hurt groins? Let alone trying to go win in the NFL.
Yeah, man. I saw a couple of comments that were like, people thought that the groin was just one connected thing, and so they learned that you have 2 groins. It was a really funny thing that shouldn't have been as funny, but it totally.
Yeah. I've just never heard it referenced. I've never heard someone say I hurt both of them. It's just I hurt my groin. I pulled my groin. I have groin injury. You never hear well, I hurt both of them, and then I hurt one of them again. It's when the answer to your question is what hurts, and you just say you're yes, both of them hurt. That's gnarly. And the fact that he says he's going to be out there is nuts. And frankly, if it really is both of his groins are hurting, you don't have to play, dude. I respect it. Please be healthy for the postseason.
Yeah, I would much rather have him healthy for the home stretch than this week against the Bengals. But he's trying to play out there, so hopefully things go better than this past week. All right, let's do game predictions, and then we'll get to some of these super chats. We have 5 more that we will touch on. We do greatly appreciate those, as always. All right, Tyler, give me a temperature check. How are you feeling overall about this game? Obviously, Khalil Mack's situation weighs heavily, I think, on the potential score. And then what are you thinking? What's your prediction for the game score?
Yeah, Khalil Mack not playing in full or whatever it ends up being definitely concerns me, as it did last week. Did it matter? No. But it concerns me. And I think that will help the Bengals quite a bit. They're also, the Bengals, that is, one of the best red zone scoring teams in the NFL. I believe they're second heading into this week, or at least they were when I checked a couple of days ago. They are great in the red zone. They have a great weapon. The Chargers are going to give up touchdowns to this team. The question, I think the number we're all hovering around is 20. Do the Chargers allow their first team to score more than 20, or do they hold the Bengals to under 20? I think this is, especially given that red zone touchdown percentage, I think this is the first game they do give up more than 20. But I also think, and thankfully, the Chargers can score and have shown enough last week. If they had played the Browns last week and that was the offense heading into this week, I would genuinely pick the Chargers to lose this game because of what they showed me against the Titans, who are a pretty good defense, and the way they were able to just find so many avenues to be successful. I am going to pick the Chargers to win. And the Bengals defense is not good. This is by far the best quarterback receiver combo they'll face all year, even the rest of the way. But I think they'll take their lumps on defense, but they'll win. And I'm going to go with, give me primetime Ficken. Cam Dicker hits a game-winning 53-yard field goal. The Chargers win 24-21.
All right, so just a hair over the 20 points. I respect it. So to answer your question about at least red zone scores per game, the Cincinnati Bengals are 8th in the league, or tied for 7th, at 2.1 red zone touchdowns per game. The Chargers have climbed up the list, averaging 1.4 red zone touchdowns per game, but they're still 24th in the league in terms of touchdown percentage. I'll get to that one. They are 2nd in the league in red zone touchdown percentage. So they're not getting there a ton, it sounds like, but when they get there, they're converting their red zone trips to touchdowns at a 72% clip. The Chargers are doing that at a 54% clip, which is 18th in the league. So that is a definite thing to watch in this matchup. I tend to agree. I think the Chargers will give up more big plays than we are kind of used to seeing them, just because the Bengals offense is that good. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins are that good. But I also expect the Chargers defense to be able to punch back. Like the Bengals, like I said, have not played a defense that is this well coached outside of the Eagles, and they did struggle to put up points in that matchup. So I think this is going to be a pretty difficult matchup for the Chargers defense, but I do expect them to make some plays of their own. If Khalil can play, that's great. But, Thule has shown a propensity to strip the ball out. Obviously, Derwin has had some big moments. We've seen him play a lot better over the last few weeks. We have not seen him be like a truly impactful player. We've seen Elijah Molden have some great moments. So I think the Chargers defense is very capable of forcing the Bengals into some 3 and outs, into some 4 and outs or 6 and outs or whatever you want to call it. Hold them up for 1 or 2 times in the red zone. But I do think the Bengals are going to pass the 20-point mark. Unfortunately, that streak is going to end. If the Chargers, Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio pointed this out, if the Chargers do hold the Bengals under 20 points, they'd be the first defense since 1990 to do that. And that was the Lawrence Taylor-led New York Giants. So if they can do this against the Bengals, salute Jesse Minter. Hope whatever team you're coaching next year is great. But I think the Bengals offense is just a little too good to have that kind of confidence in them.
Yeah.
The other side of the coin here, though, is that I do expect the Chargers run game to I think this could be a huge J.K. Dobbins game. I really do think this could be another 120-yard type game. Breaks off a couple, big-time explosive runs. And the Chargers can control the clock that way and limit some of the Bengals' possessions on offense. So I feel good about the Chargers' chances to win this game. If Khalil Mack can play, I would feel a lot better. But I do expect the Bengals offense to score some points more so than we are used to seeing. So I went 27-24. Not super far off from what you were accustomed to seeing, but I just think the run game, the way that Justin Herbert is playing, Jesse Minter being able to do enough to limit the Bengals, I think should, result in a Chargers win. But I'm excited, man. This is easily the most excited I've been for a game this season because it feels like a lot of momentum brewing for the Chargers. It feels like this is a great opportunity for them to establish themselves as a legitimate AFC playoff contender. Everybody's going to learn about, Jim Harbaugh and everybody. So it's an exciting matchup for sure.
Yeah. I think this game, it feels like what Herbert's been through for a couple of years where defense ain't it. The offensive line isn't really great. And he didn't even have Jamar Chase most of those moments or any of those moments. There's no Jamar Chase that Herbert's had in his career. And Burrow is facing the better coached team, which Herbert has usually not been on.
No, very rarely.
So it's Burrow's kind of walking into SoFi as what Herbert's been through the last couple of years. Yeah. And I think Herbert's in this great position where the defense can take care of things. The special teams can do some things. They can run the football. And then, yes, Herbert is now in this zone right now of playing some really, really good football. So it's just, I think the Chargers have more ways to win. They have a better team. They're better coached. You can say Burrow's playing better football right now. Fine, no problem. Jamar Chase, maybe the best player on that field on Sunday. But the Chargers are a better team, better coach team.
Yes, I think that's a massive advantage as well. So should be a ton of fun. I wish I were able to make this game out. I would definitely encourage everybody to go and do that. The Chargers had their game rehearsal today and we're posting some fun videos about it. So definitely encourage that. Quick question from Ryan before we get to the super chats. He wants to know if Herbert plays the same level he's been at for this game and they win, are we having MVP conversations around number 10?
I think it kind of depends on where you're at because some people have started the Herbert as a dark horse MVP candidate conversation already. But if we're talking actual serious, like top 3 candidate should win it conversations, that doesn't happen until I think they beat the Ravens. And frankly, I don't think that's even cemented until they beat the Chiefs, especially if they're the team to knock off the Chiefs from their undefeated record.
Yeah, traditionally speaking, the MVP has to go to a top 2 seed in their conference. It's extremely rare for a player to win MVP and not be one of the 2 best teams, one of the 4 best teams in the league. Should he be in the conversation? I believe so. I mean, when you're talking about the sheer value that he's providing and what he's been able to overcome with this offense so far, the inconsistencies of the run game, which hopefully is better, now. His number 1 receiver is a rookie slot receiver from Georgia. Like, how many guys are really doing that? He's getting a career season out of Will Dissly. Like, how many other quarterbacks can do the things he's doing with this kind of team? It's probably the guy he's facing on Sunday night, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and that's probably it. Maybe Matthew Stafford. Should he be in the conversation? I think he should be in there now. Can he win it? I don't think this year. I think next year would probably be a much better chance for him.
Yeah.
When the Chargers are able to get some more pieces around him, continue to improve the defense, hopefully get Jesse Minter to stay. Next year, it seems like a potential serious MVP season for him. The other thing here is that Lamar Jackson is having a historically good season just as a passer. Right now, he's doing things that only 2007 Tom Brady, 2004 Peyton Manning, like that crowd. That's the kind of company he's in from a passing standpoint. And then also, by the way, he's like the 4th leading rusher in the league. So assuming the Ravens can figure things out a bit on defense and win their division and get a top 2 seed in the AFC, this is Lamar Jackson's award to lose at this current moment. But we've seen things change, right? Like maybe somebody gets injured on that team. You never wish that, obviously. But long answer here, I do think Justin Herbert should be in the conversation.
Yeah.
I just have a hard time picturing him to win it because they're not going to get the 1 seed. They're not going to get the 2 seed, I don't think. And it's just very difficult to win an MVP that way.
Yeah, the division, it's so close. And then Denver like allows a field goal block. And it was kind of close. The Chargers were getting there. They play the Bills, the Chiefs to play the Bills this weekend. Yeah. And they play the Panthers and they play the Raiders. Okay, they play the Chargers. Then they play the Browns. Houston, I have no idea what kind of team they are. Pittsburgh stuff, and they play Denver. They already have 9 wins. There's at least, I mean, even for an average team, there's 3 wins, and there's at least 2 against the Panthers, who have won 2 in a row, but give me a break, and the Raiders, who are a mess. So the Chiefs are getting to 13 wins, probably again, and it's unfortunate because I think Herbert, he's got to get there. They as a team, not just Herbert, have to win the division.
Yeah, and I think they'll have a much better chance of doing that next year. But I mean, the fact that we're even having this conversation, I think, speaks volumes to the coaching job that Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, and company are able to do. But there's a chance that they meaning the Chiefs, are able to rest starters on Christmas Day against the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're that far ahead of, like, if they beat the Bills and then they beat the Chargers and then they beat the Texans, that's the 1 seed right there. They don't even need to play starters the last 2 weeks. So yeah, it's so unfortunate that this is happening. And now they're getting Pacheco back and Charles Omenihu's back and etc. So it sucks. But anyways. All right, we'll wrap up with some of these super chats here from Alex. He says, "What up, newly joined Blue Sky Gang? Appreciate that." He says, "Cam Hart interception week. I would love to see it. Like I said, he's been building positive performances. If he's able to get an interception and limit T. Higgins, I think that will go a very long way. And again, kind of announcing the kind of player that he is."
I'd love it. He's been close, had some great pass breakups, but yes, that interception would be nice.
Yeah. Luis Serrano, I don't know if there was a question attached to this and we missed it, but we really appreciate the generous super chat there.
Yeah, I saw only that super chat from him. I didn't see a question. So if you're still here, fire it in.
All right. Sean back in here. He says that just wanted to hopefully shine some light on your day if you needed it. Like what y'all do for me. Cheers, boys. He'll be in New England in December. Boys, I bundle up.
Did you lose a bet?
Yeah, that's a very cold game, I would imagine. But if you're in that area, obviously your choices are very limited to see Chargers games. But yeah, buy a couple extra coats for that one.
Yeah, Sean was the guy I was mentioning at the top of the show, as direct messaging me. So I really, really appreciated that. But just it stuff like that. Not that we need it to feed an ego, but it gives us like another day or even another hour of working, focus, stuff like that. So I really do appreciate it. New England in December is quite a thing. That would be what December. It's not Christmas. You're close to it, is it?
I think it is around Christmas. Yeah,
it is. Why is it at TBD Flex game? No, it's the week after. It's the week after Christmas.
So New Year's ish.
New Year's. Yeah.
That's
good
probably
luck, man.
Probably like 5 degrees and negative 15 wind chill.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome, man. You go do that. But like, yeah, make like a lightning bolt or a Harbaugh angel, whatever you want, like a Minter angel.
Yeah.
New England. Yeah.
Yeah. This is why I'm really hoping the Chargers can match up with the Texans in the playoffs, because Houston in January, very manageable. Great warm weather. Not warm, but it'll be probably like 40 degrees, and they play inside in a dome. Would be great to see.
He got to see the 6-0 game.
Oh my gosh!
what a wow.
I mean, if you live in those areas, right? Like, you only get so many chances to see the team play. Like, I get it. Like, if I lived in New England, I wouldn't ever live there. Like, respect, but I grew up in a cold state, and I will never do it again. But yeah, if you grew up in New England, you're probably very limited on chances to see the Chargers play. So you sometimes got to go to Brandon Staley on the hot seat versus What was that guy? What's that quarterback's name? Oh my gosh, I totally forget.
Bailey Zapp.
Bailey Zappi. Yes, in a snowstorm. Not
Yeah.
fun.
No, not fun at all. But hey, I do want to do one of those games at one point, go to somewhere cold and freezing. I say that, and then I realize I'll be going by myself because my wife, my mom, no one's going with me to these games.
I'll suck it up and go with you to one of those games if it
If
happens.
they make the postseason, sure, we'll go ahead to wherever. And again, we need the bolt up. We need a third person so we can go like shirtless into the GAC on our bellies or something,
I will not do that. I want to stay warm. I'm not doing the Ryan Fitzpatrick thing by any means.
Man.
But yeah, we appreciate Sean.
Totally.
For the most part, obviously doing the podcast has been extremely positive experience. People like Sean have brought a lot of that to the table. Anytime I go to a game, there's always people who, are very gracious with their time and come up and say hello. And so we do really appreciate 99% of you out there that are Chargers fans. It's just kind of the 1% kind of ruin it sometimes for social media stuff.
Yes. Oh, I also have to shout out Steve and Bill, who went to my sister's restaurant and knew us. So
nice.
Thank you, Steve and Bill.
Nice. Clinton back in here. He says he didn't mean to weird you out with a confusing chat. Was making a joke of love about how you normally introduce yourself as the host, but did not last show. Who is and his question is who is to throw a touchdown pass to Herbo this Bengals game?
Oh, because Keenan did it, or was that the 2-point conversion?
I think that was a 2-point conversion. But really quickly, Clinton, thank you for the second super chat. Hopefully you do not take offense to that. That is our mistake. It did not sense the sarcasm through the super chat. So
yeah,
really appreciate the back-to-back super chats. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Your answer to his question, I don't even know who would be the thrower of this wide receiver group.
Who am I thinking of? Come on, you can do it. Who am I? Who's going to throw this pass to Herbert?
I feel like J.K. Dobbins weirdly can throw a pass.
Too boring. Keep going.
Are you thinking like Scott Matlock?
Yeah, baby. We're going to Scott Matlock passing touchdown. They're thinking fullback dive. Nope. Fullback heave.
Yes. That's a good one. That is a good one. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. He's pretty seamlessly transitioned to fullback. So yeah, I wouldn't surprise me. He's apparently a great golfer also. I wouldn't surprise me if he's a good thrower. I wonder who, like seriously, like who has like the best arm of the non-quarterbacks.
Just on offense, I feel like I'm sure like Derwin could rip it or something. Keenan used to be the guy. I'm trying to think of it. Yeah.
I feel like if Palmer could throw, we would know by now.
Yeah.
Maybe Jalen Rager's got an arm.
Well, he barely has hands.
He had a great catch this last week.
He did. He's had great catches. One was great. One was a fumble. One was for -3 yards.
His catch against the Saints was insane. It was
incredible. Incredible. I forgot who Mike Williams was for a second there. Maybe Ladd McConkey. I don't know. Like he probably grew up trying to play quarterback and then realized he didn't pass like 6 foot.
Yeah.
Oh, Stone Smart. Duh. That's probably a good one. Stone
Smart. Oh, duh. He was a college quarterback. Yeah.
Thank you.
But he doesn't play.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah. Okay. Active player.
Although he should play.
That is correct. Hey, maybe Hayden Hurst can throw. Find a way to contribute.
Yikes. But Clinton, great question. Appreciate back-to-back super chats. Ivan is in here. He says the Bucs defense scares him with the front seven with Vita Vea and Levante David. What are your thoughts about the Bucs matchup?
That just feels like a roll with the punches kind of game for sure. Like Vita Vea is Vita Vea. It stinks, but Jeffrey Simmons is Jeffrey Simmons, and they made that work. The Bucs, unfortunately, I don't know where Wirfs is at after his injury, but I don't think that was great.
I don't think it's season ending, but I think he could. That's in 5 weeks.
So Bucs, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs. Or I'm sorry, Bengals, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs, Bucs. Yeah.
Okay. There's a chance he misses, but it doesn't sound like it's that serious. From what I've seen.
We'll see. But unfortunately, they're a team that's just injury. The real issue will be Bucky Irving, whose RAS score has not managed to be any significant issue to him this year.
Yeah. I'm much more concerned about their offense. I think their offense is one of the best in the league. The Bucks defense blitzes a lot, but they're not very good at it. So as long as you're on kind of your P's and Q's, like the Bucks defense is very beatable. But the Bucks are a very scrappy, physical matchup that I think that could potentially trip the Chargers up more so than people are kind of expecting right now.
Yeah.
Especially with Vita Vea. Vita Vea is a fantastic freak of a human being. So he's a great player. Levante David is kind of an angel's wonder, but they don't really have much outside of that. It's just kind of those two, the occasional Kalijah Cansey game. That's like, and I guess Antoine Winfield.
Yaya Diaby, I think, is actually pretty productive this year. The Louisville edge rusher.
Yeah. I would not have guessed that.
I forget what it was because I was looking at it for Hendrickson and I realized he was up there. 38 pressures on the season so far.
That's very good. Very respectable.
Pretty good. Mm-hmm.
All right. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yes, Vita Vea against Bradley Bozeman does not inspire confidence. All right. Tyler, any final thoughts before we head out?
You heard Jim. Go to the game, guys. It's building. It's exciting. I'll be there. My sister will be there. It should be a fun one. And if they lose, I just want you to know this. It's not my fault. I'm just going to be there to watch, okay? I don't have any impact unless I fart and they miss a field goal. I had no impact on the game whatsoever.
You have like the most powerful fart ever, and it just messes with Cameron Dicker.
Yeah. I get nervous in those moments, man, people kind of like shit themselves before battle. There's a game-winning field goal on the line, and you had those stadium hot dogs, which aren't really good. You never know, man.
Wait. That's the in-stadium hot dogs or the out-of-the-stadium hot dogs? Because the out-of-the-stadium hot dogs are fire.
Oh yeah, the stuff on the outside is fan. What I have available to me as a fan in the building is terrible. Outside, fantastic. You don't ask questions, but it's really good.
Yeah, I've heard the VIP food is fantastic in SoFi. Must be nice. Can't afford it.
Awesome. Throw me some. That'd be great.
Yeah. But yes, another recommendation, if you're going to SoFi, make sure and eat at Thunder Alley beforehand. And you can get like chicken fingers and tots and be fine. But the stadium food needs some work for sure.
Yes. Everybody holding their farts on fourth down.
Yes, holding the farts. All right. Appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a great time tonight. Super excited for this matchup. We will be back on Saturday for our Q&A, and then Alex Katzen and I will be recapping the game on Sunday night. So appreciate Alex for filling in for Tyler again this week. All right, guys, this has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. We'll see you next time. Bolt up.